reading at the dark end of the street, Black Women, Rape, and Resistance, A New History of the Civil Rights Movement from Rosa Parks to the Rise of Black Power by McGuire. And our sessions it started June 3rd and they last through July 29th. They are from 6:30 to 8.
And I will quickly read points 14, 16, and 17, and then look at question B down there. 14. Nationalist feminist groups and civil rights organizations rallied behind her. The Women's Legal Defense Fund, the Feminist Alliance Against Rape, the Rape Crisis Center, the National Black Feminist Organization, and the National Organization Women, which was struggling to appeal to women of color, joined the fundraising effort and mobilized nationwide support. The National NAACP maintained its historic reluctance to embrace sex cases and did not get involved. However, local chapters helped raise money. In an article for the Black Scholar, Malana Rankaringa called Americans to accept and support Little's account of what actually happened and to reject the version offered by the oppressor. Rosa Parks, who had been an anti-rape activist since she helped organize the campaign to defend Reesa Taylor in the early 1940s, helped found a local branch of the Joan Little Legal Defense Committee in Detroit. The trial of the decade began on July 15, 1975, and was conducted in Raleigh, where Paul had succeeded in having it moved. Hundreds of supporters rallied outside the Wake Forest courthouse, hoisting placards and chanting, 1, 2, 3, Joan must be set free, 4, 5, 6, power to the ice pick. Inside the courthouse, attorneys argued over jury picks and finally agreed on 6 African Americans and 6 whites, and all but 5 were under 40 years old. During the trial, defense called on a stream of black women who testified about their experiences at the Beaufort County Jail. Galloway had spent months preparing Little in the art of respectability, which had been challenging because of what Paul described as her negative side. On August 6th, Judge Hobgood reduced the charge to second-degree murder because the state had failed to offer sufficient evidence that she had planned the killing, he said. Little offered a raw but appropriate testimony of how the 200-pound jailer had approached her with an ice pick in hand, demanding pussy, but didn't show any anger even after 3 hours of battering by the prosecution. Although Karen Galloway's summation brought the jurors to tears, Paul wanted to reinforce the ways in which Little's story fit within a long history of defiling black women. In his comments, he said rape is a crime of violence, of hatred, of humiliation. After deliberating for 78 minutes, the jury unanimously voted to acquit Joan Little. Question B. Would more visible support from national organizations be effective today in breaking the momentum of the prison industrial complex? If so, what has happened to these voices?
Well, I can get a stab at that. The answer to that, in my opinion, is no. I think if to break the prison complex, not a national tension, to one bullet for it, has to be it has to be proven that the money is being wasted. It is truly industry of money, and Rand Paul and all of them are, along with Senator Booker, they're trying to approach that, along with the Attorney General, with the decriminalization of marijuana. So national attention, one way, and the second way is to let them know that it's just not worth it. It costs too much money to in-house statistics over 2 million Americans. That's more than the state of Wyoming, South Dakota, and North Dakota combined.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Anybody?
From what it sounded like in the chapter, when she broke down the different organizations and how they use Little's case to like fit their own description, it seems like there's so many organizations that have picked apart certain key things to focus on, that the voices as a united front is kind of difficult to have, because nobody thinks something is as important. So one organization thinks her being in prison was a big deal. The other one thinks she's on death row. The other one think it's talking about her being a black woman. So nobody's really using intersectionality at this point. They're making they're making people choose one, and it's impossible to choose one, especially as a black woman. You have to acknowledge all of the complexities about ourselves. And so, in terms of would it make a difference now, I don't think so, because of those reasons right there. Nobody thinks of black women as whole. We have to either be one. We either have to be black or we have to be a woman. And so, and all the little sub things that come with being both black and women.
That's interesting. One of my pet peeves, I guess, is that I'm a generalist living in a specialist world. We are almost forced to specialize in something. There was a time in human beings' history when we were all generalists. You had to know how to make your clothes and milk the cow and grow your food and, create your art and, your music and all of that. And, but in a steady way, we have been pushed toward being these really narrowly focused specialists kinds of people, and I mean, there may be some good economic reasons for it, but nevertheless, specialists tend to have these blinders, when it comes to a lot of other things that may intersect, as Randie is saying, or surround a particular issue, and I think it really works from an oppressor's point of view in these narrow little silos, where they don't know what's happening over here and they don't care about what's happening over here because this is the only thing that matters. So that's interesting, Randie, because I hadn't really thought about it from an organizational point of view like that. Thank you. Anyone else on that point?
But hasn't that been a problem all along with the black race, as far as our organizational unity? That after a while it starts out with one objective and ends up with another because egos come into play, which has a lot to do with us being divided the way we are, and organizations thinking differently. The whole ego comes in, and it's not after a while. It's not about the victim. It's about
right.
So
right,
and that happened when the 80s.
Yeah.
That's what I'm finding now. It's just even the black organizations around today. It starts out as one representing one thing, and before you know it, all these egos come in, and by the time they get done, I have no idea what they represent. They don't even have an idea what they represent.
What are you saying about the 80s?
I'm saying the 80s. You know, in the 60s and the 70s, we were still somewhat united. You know, we thought differently. You saw all the different organizations, but as time went on, progressively, the organizations start to run more off of ego than objective. You know, which brings us into
it reminds me it reminds me of something Dr. King wrote about of the need to feel special. That, and he talked about the different Greek organizations and, the church clubs and all of these different things that we have such a need for, so that everybody gets to feel special. And, even Dr. King, I mean, one of Ella Baker's great criticisms was that King's ego was, so big you couldn't get through the door with it. So I think that's why I was asking you about the 80s, because I really think it goes deeper than that. I think it's much older than that, and maybe a natural part of human history, or a sign of our collective insanity. But it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
I agree. It started a long time ago. It just appeared to me that it progressively got worse after the 70s. More organizations, more ego, more me, more I am the king, more Jesse Jackson. And it's always been there. It just got progressive. Are you okay, Randie?
Yeah, something's in my eye.
Okay. Girl, I didn't know you might fall out on me or what.
No, something's like been, I don't know. Don't mind me. I'm listening.
Okay. Anyway, I'm done. Where's Michelle?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Georgette, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to add briefly that even though all our national organizations, they all have clay feet, because our leaders have clay feet, we still need their voices, no matter how effective or ineffective they've become, because at every moment we're at the point of sliding back to the ground we fought for, to lose it. And on that point, I wanted to say that legislation will always be important, even though it will never change someone's heart. That's a human experience. You're going to have to interact with people and your children. You're going to have to educate them and just have experiences. But the prison, and then I just wanted to say the prison industrial complex is definitely, that is a moneymaker. And until you can make something that's negative non-profitable, there is always going to be someone to keep it going for you. So, and they'll create legislation to keep it going. They'll create social environments to make you believe it's necessary. So you've got to work at, you have to attack it from many different areas in order to dismantle it. And even though we don't have a lot of faith in some of our organizations, our leaders, the United Negro College Fund, the president of that just disappointed me, because I was looking at him a lot better than I was looking at the NAACP, but he went over to the Koch brothers. So
for the money.
Yes,
$25
yes,
million.
yes. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So we can never give up on that, even as tiring and as burdensome as it is. And that was a beautiful quote, Randy, you gave. You quoted, and it just really described everything any oppressed people have felt about the situation when they don't have the power. But we can't stop, because you look at your children and you think about their children, and where do you want them to end up after you've said you were tired? And if the people who came before us had gotten tired, where would we be?
Absolutely.
So we can never stop. And so that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you.